value of being able to be alone with yourself. So this idea called Hisbodedus, which means to be alone. And this is something that's been championed from the early Baalei Musar, from the earliest moralists, Rabbeinu B'Chayev, Mekudam, Chavis Alavavis, speaks about the need to be alone, for a person to be able to be alone with themselves, to later the Baalei Musar, the more modern Baalei Musar, Yisrael Salanter, the idea of the value of Hisbodedus, the value of being alone with yourself, being in isolation, maybe separate from other people, so you can self-examine, you can self-reflect, you can find yourself, you can hear your inner voice, hear yourself. There's an idea that we find even that's brought down in Chassidus, which talks about this idea of, we find that Moshe Rabbeinu was a shepherd, and the others were shepherds. An idea, because to be a shepherd means to be alone, to be with animals, to be in nature, to be alone with themselves. It talks about Yitzchak goes out into the fields, and the idea to pray alone in the fields, in a place that it's more tznius, but to pray alone in the fields, and maybe not, formal prayer, but to daven, to be alone with Hashem, to be alone with himself, this to be alone in nature. This rejuvenates, so whether it's in nature itself, then certainly it rejuvenates and allows a person to be attached more to the fullness of creation and to be alone. But just even to be alone with themselves, not to be scared to be alone with themselves. Which is this is the idea of a type of hisbodedus, chitzoni, external isolation, to separate yourself. Not to make this into a practice, which is the old style of the Prushim of old, people that separate from society completely, but as a practice, to have a place that you can go to be alone with yourself and to be in a place of stillness. The Rambam, the great Rambam, Maimonides, had one child, married later, and he had one child. His child, the Rambam's child, was born when the Rambam was already 51. And the Rambam's son was born in Egypt, when the Rambam lived in Egypt. He's originally from Andalus. And he was living in Egypt. And when the Rambam passed away, the son was named Rav Avram ben Rambam he was named, famous as the son of the Rambam, son of the Rambam. He was still a teenager, but he was a great person, a great scholar, a great tzaddik, a great chassid. And he became the Nagid, he became the leader of the Jewish community, and he also became the doctor of the Sultan of Egypt, which means that he was a very prominent and great scholar. The Rambam's son wrote a lot defending his father in the world of halacha, defending his father's writings of the Yad HaChazaka. And he also wrote a commentary that we have, which is a commentary on the Torah, which is a very nice commentary, because he also brings down things that he heard from his father, even from his grandfather. He heard from his father in the name of his grandfather. And it's a very sweet book. The Rambam's son, Rav Avram, also wrote a book in Arabic, using Hebrew letters, the Hebrew Arabic. And it was translated into Hebrew, called Amasmik Lev Hashem. Most of the book of the book of Amasmik Lev Hashem we don't have, but whatever they printed, it was printed is a version of it, something that was left. And the different erechim, the different ideas, different topics that he talks about of how a person can be Oived Hashem, how a person can serve Hashem. He was a very mystical person, and he was very into dancing and prostrating, etc. And the son of the Rambam writes in an entry on his Hisbodedus of isolation, of being alone with oneself. He talks about Hisbodedus chitzoni and Hisbodedus pnimi, a type of isolation, external isolation, which you're separating yourself, literally separating from other selves, from other people, which is one type. So you're just physically separating. But he talks about more of Hisbodedus pnimi, like an internal isolation, something that's going on a deeper level of your consciousness. This idea is already expressed. Also, Rabbeinu Yonah Shar Tshuva speaks about it, and the Ralbag and Mechamas Hashem has a long conversation about this in terms of prophecy. But let's understand this in a very more simple level and very applicable level, something that's relevant to every single person in terms of the practice of what this actually means, to learn to be alone with yourself, to be comfortable with yourself, comfortable in that silence. So on the one hand, the human being is Medina B'Teva is a social animal. People need other people. People need to interact with other people. That's on one level, like the Rambam writes in Hilchos Deos. The Rambam writes in chapter 6, the nature of a person is to follow the pattern of his friends. People are influenced by other people, and also people need other people. The Rambam writes in the Moira as well, in the guide, that people need other people. This is the nature of human beings, to seek out social interactions. Yet, this is on one level, the nature of a human being, but there's another nature of a human being, which Chazal say that, sages say that Adam Adam was created yechidi, singularity, alone. Adam was created alone. And the idea of being created alone is not just that Adam was created alone, because Chazal, our Doyesh, read from that therefore a person should say, but on a deep level, like the Medrash brings down, and it's that all people, neshamas, the way that in the Sefer Kabbalah is brought down, all neshamas are rooted within the great soul of Adam Rishon, the great soul of Adam Kadmon, which means that on a deep level, on an existential level, there is a part of us, part of a human being that is very social, that needs social interactions, and there's a part of a human being which is also very strongly part of who they are, is that a person is also born in isolation, born alone. That a person is a born yechidi, to spend time alone with themselves. And we have to celebrate and really navigate these two levels of self in a healthy, balanced way of being with other people and being in social settings, certainly if they're positive social settings, because the Rambam actually continues Hilchos Deos saying, and therefore if you're under influence of negative people, you should separate from them. But let's say this is positive interactions that are conducive for your growth and healthy relationships, and you should pursue them. That's part of the definition of what it means to be a human being, is to have these social interactions and done it in a healthy way. And God forbid, people that don't have healthy social interactions is very sad, and it can be also tragic and even deadly for children that don't have social touch, etc. And then there's part of the human being is also nivri yechida, that man is born alone. That to be alone is a very important part of what it means to be a human being. So to be alone can mean multiple levels. Let's try to understand level after level what this means. On one level, on one state, one reality, it means simply to separate yourself in space and to separate yourself from other people and to be in a place that you're detached from others, whether it could be in your room or in the forest or in a walk. Whatever you're doing is to be alone. But it's important that when you are being alone with yourself, you should also cut yourself off from the possibility of also communicating. Of course, not if you're in a dangerous situation. Like for example, if you're alone in a room with yourself, and you're sitting on your phone, certainly if it's a smartphone that's connected to the internet, then you're not really alone with yourself in the room. What you've actually done is you brought everything from the outside world into this room. So that doesn't count for being alone with yourself. In fact, that actually causes a lot of depression because you have fake social interactions. So we're saying that not only should you not have a smartphone, certainly when you're going to be alone with yourself, but even a phone general, and even to have the phone in the room would also be counterproductive, because that's the possibility of reconnecting. It's important that when you detach, and you're being alone with yourself, you have to believe, truly experientially believe that this is true, that you're going to detach yourself from others for a longer period of time. Let's say it's 20 minutes or half hour, whatever that time is. But if you enter into the room alone with yourself, and so assuming that you're not coming in with a phone that has internet connection, but you still can call people, you always know that you're not really alone with yourself. You're alone for the time being, but if you really want, you can actually go ahead and call someone. To try to create a reality for yourself where you're actually have to be alone with yourself, only alone with yourself. That's important. So, and that will force um, something deeper to come out, because it's not going to be a type of understanding of other people. And then on a deeper level, this would mean also that not only when you're alone with yourself and not physically attached to other people, and not only physically attached, but not even with the possibility of connecting with other people through a phone or through texting or through whatever other medium that you want to connect, you don't have that possibility. But on a deeper level, if you really want to do this correctly and really be with yourself and know yourself and allow yourself to speak to yourself, you have to also detach yourself from other people. So when you enter your place of being alone with yourself, whether you're taking a hike or you're taking a walk or you're being alone in a room, it would be important that you stop thinking about other people as well. Because then on your consciousness level, you're not alone. So stop thinking about other people. Not only not speaking to other people, not physically not speaking to other people or texting other people, not the possibility of speaking and texting other people, but stop even thinking about other people. Because then, says, wherever your thoughts are, that's where you actually are. So if you're alone in the room and you're sitting on vacation talking to your friends in the Caribbean, then you're really there, you're not here. So what you have to do is really detach yourself. And also detach yourself from all types of conversations that you're having, in the dialogues and monologues that you're having with yourself about other people. So just try to think about yourself as yourself. It would be even deeper if you can do this even on a deeper level, which also detach yourself from all types of stimuli, external stimuli. So the basic stimuli that you need, besides, like we said, man is a social animal, interactions, is also food. So go into a room and don't eat. But I would say that not only you shouldn't eat, but you shouldn't be also hungry, because if you're hungry, you're going to be thinking about food, and that's also an external stimulation that you need in order to. Some people eat to feel better about themselves, also, or because they feel bad about themselves, whatever the reason for their eating, or even if you're eating because you're hungry, but that means that there's a need that's outside yourself that you're dependent on. So detach yourself from all that. Go into a place alone with yourself, without a cell phone, without the need for food or drink, or at least minimal amount of food and drink that you don't need. And we're not talking about for a long period of time. Maybe it can just be 20 minutes. But it's a forced time to be alone with yourself. A good example of a way to do this would be, if you're driving in a car, that, you shut your phone off, or you give your phone to someone else, or before you go in the car and you say, I'm just going to drive for a few minutes and just be alone and there's no one there. A drive in the mountains or somewhere on a highway, there's no other people driving. Something like that. And to be alone with yourself. And you'll see a lot of things come up. And then there's, even if you really want to go deeper, and you do get deeper as you're sitting alone with yourself, you also start quieting also your emotions. So not only you're quieting your sensations, physical sensations that are outside your body, you also start quieting the inner sensations that are coming up, which is your emotions. And it's also quieting the mind, calming down, quieting the mind, stop the onrush of thoughts. I think that, the other thought. Slowly, this is more panemius. This is a more internal types of aloneness or isolation, of being alone with themselves, is as you're going deeper and deeper, everything else is becoming more quiet. Certainly the noise about other people, and even the noise about yourself, whether it's emotions or it's even thoughts themselves, everything starts calming down. It's sometimes helpful to use breathing to get into that state. Because the way the Torah describes creation is that there's a creation which is the external level of creation, which is through dibur, through speech, which is communication and dialogue, which is otherness. Vayomer Hashem, Hashem spoke the world into being, which by definition is that there's an other, or the creation of otherness, which is speech. Speech demands a hearer, a speaker and a receiver. That's one form of creation. Then there's Beruach Piv called Tzavam. There's also the Ruach Piv, like the wind of the mouth, which is the creation of angels, which is a higher level of speech, which is the way speech exists within the wind before it becomes articulated through sound, through the potentials of the mouth, 5 potentials of the mouth. But there's even a higher level of creation, which is Nishmas Chaim, that Hashem blew into his nostrils a breath of life, which is the world of Neshama. The world of Neshama, of soul, of deep internality, the deep level of something that's inwards, is the world of souls, the world of neshamas. So if you just want to scheme it out in terms of the spiritual worlds, is Bri, Yitzir, Asiya. So Asiya is the world of speech, and Yitzir is the world of angels, Olam HaMalachim, Mechzav HaMalachim, the world of angels, and Bria is the world of neshamas, Mechzav neshamas, the source of souls, and Olam HaBina, the world of Bina, which is connected to the world of Bria. So that's the idea of souls. And neshama, Chazal say, the Medrash says, at the end of on Tilim, it's Kol Neshama Tahalaka, where every breath a person speaks, breathes, Kol Neshama Tahalaka, you should praise Hashem. And Chazal say, Kol Neshima Neshima, on every breath that you take, Kol Neshama, your entire soul should sing Hashem's praise. That's how the book of Psalms, the book of Tilim ends. And Chazal say, the sages say, this means the Kol Neshima Neshima, on every breath that you take, Tahalaka. The Kol Neshima Neshima, Tahalaka, and every breath that you take, you should sing Hashem's praise, is not a tzivoy, it's not a command that you should. This is a reality, what is happening. Every time you're taking a breath, you're inhaling oxygen, you're bringing in life to yourself, and every time you're exhaling your oxygen, your own self, into the world, you're emptying yourself into the world, you're cycling, so to speak, the divine energy, the life force is coming into this world. Also, that goes through the process of the Hevel Elyon, from the original breath, it comes down to Ruach, and then it comes down into Dibur, it comes down to wind, comes down to breath, to wind, and then into speech. So you're cycling, that there's a divine energy, a divine life force that comes into the world, the ruts of a shuf, and return and going, and you're actually mirroring the inflection, the opposite inflection. Every time you're taking an inhale, you're inhaling the divine exhale, the new breath of life that's being pumped into the universe. Every time you're taking an exhale, you're returning back your life force, your energy, your koyach, and everything that you have, like the Maggid of Mezer speaks about. You're taking all your thoughts and all your feelings, all your sensations that you're experiencing right now, and you're emptying yourself into the universe and emptying yourself ultimately into the inhale of the divine presence. So you're cycling the energy, you're cycling the movement, the inhale, the exhale parallels, the inhale and exhale of man. So as you're being alone with yourself, and you're breathing, and you're going deeper into the breath, the breath is like a technique that allows you to go deeper and deeper into yourself. You connect more with your neshama, you're connecting more with your soul, with your yechidius, with your uniqueness, the parts of yourself that's not interdependent with other people, the part of self that's not external, the part of self that's not social, but the part of self that's really who you truly are. And this is why it's important to practice this, to use this also through using this technique. If you're using through breathing, in the book Breathing Your Quiet Mind, this is explained more in great detail, exactly how you use the techniques of breathing. But the idea is to use that in a way that become more pneumius, to spend time alone with yourself, to understand yourself, to see what comes up, not to have the onrush of thoughts that you're thinking about this and that and the other thing, certainly not thinking about other people, but slowly the mind becomes quiet and things start coming up from your subconscious, things start coming up from your deeper levels of self, and you're slowly starting discovering yourself, to be alone with yourself. And that's a tremendous gift. The tremendous gift is to be alone with yourself, to allow yourself to reveal yourself. And this is why there's a teaching from Sham Shas Topoler that's brought down from a great tzaddik that was killed in Xeris Tachutat in 1648, 1649, that this great tzaddik, Sham Shas Topoler, says, Toiv b'didus b'nei adam, precious b'nei adam. That it's toiv b'didus b'soich b'nei adam. It's better to practice aloneness amongst other people than separation from people. Which means, and the Rebbe Rayatz brings down this quote, what this means is that it's better to always be alone with yourself. It's not an external act. Don't try to say, I want to detach from other people, I need to run alone, to be alone with myself, I need a vacation, I need to be alone for the next 3 weeks somewhere. It's try, even when you're amongst other people. It's bedidus b'seich b'nei adam. Sometimes you're in a conversation, not necessarily in a conversation, but in a room with other people, and maybe you're not finding yourself. You don't know who to speak to. You find yourself in a social setting, or in a wedding, or in a funeral, or someplace, some type of social condition that you don't feel a little comfortable with yourself. Okay, sit down with yourself, and keep yourself company. Allow yourself to go inwards. Take a few breaths. Allow yourself to go inwards, and be with yourself, even amongst other people. And then when a person is really alone with themselves, and allows their soul, the neshama, to speak to themselves, and the neshama l'rav, the soul speaks to the teacher, as the Baal Shem Tov quotes often, a type of inner knowing, a type of inner knowing, like the Ramban writes in Mubasar with regards to the sages. It's Ruach Kodesh B'Kirva, the wisdom that exists within their consciousness, within their souls, that becomes revealed. ultimately it reveals the oneness of Hashem and the recognition that my breath and Hashem's breath are all into the Kaviyach. Hashem's breath is all one, and we're connected, and we're always connected with Hashem, no matter what. And that's what it says about Yaakov Levadoi, that Yaakov was alone with himself, and he was alone on the other side of the river. And the Medrash says, Kiniskav Shmei Levadoi, Einem Levadoi. Kiniskav Shmei Levadoi, that represents the oneness of Hashem. To be alone with the self is sometimes to be alone with Hashem, and to recognize the oneness of Hashem. And then, as the more we practice it, the more inwards we are with our own selves, the more comfortable we are with ourselves, the more we can be alone with ourselves, whether it's, like I said before, maybe taking a drive alone in the car, or when you're in a car and you feel like you're driving for a long period of time, instead of trying to fill the space with noise, which is the natural inclination that people do because they feel alone and therefore they're scared to be alone, so they'll add music or conversation or some other silly nonsense, possibly. But sometimes we just shut everything down, just be alone with yourself, and you'll see that you'll be alone with yourself and something becomes revealed, and then you feel deeply connected with yourself, and you're deeply connected with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, deeply connected with Hashem, and something becomes much more magical. And then when you leave that space, you can participate, and you can be engaged in this world from a much holier